Hey guys, this is Evan. Apparently, I have nothing better to do in the world than to make this YouTube video. And obviously, people want attention, so I'll give it to them. So, this past week, I received a phone call right when I got home from VA. I got this phone call, and VA always tells me you may be called by an unknown number, so answer, answer, answer. So, I do my best to answer every call. And I answer, and I'm like, Mr. Mendez, hello. And it's some guy saying that he's with Medicare, Medicaid, something like that. And I was like, I'm with VA. And then he hung up. And so I was like, okay, well, I come from a place in my mind where I used to be the type of guy that as my day went along, I tackled on everything very organized, very planned, very meticulous, very scrupulous. And now it's not that I do not care, it's just that like I don't have the energy and I know way better than to like exert my energy on something dumb and stupid. And I would rather just be happy for the moment than deal with some phony stuff. So, and I don't procrastinate, and I'm very light on myself as far as like what I go through in my life because one, I'm not even supposed to be alive right now, and two, I just really am focusing on rebuilding my relationships and building new relationships and interactions. I do not want to spend my day calling HPD, KPD, Houston FBI, FBI. Any I don't want any how do I say this? I don't want any part. I don't want any part in interacting. It could be an agency for wildlife. I don't want any part in anything federal or government. I don't even want to be labeled as a veteran at times. Like, I have so much trauma from being in the VA system that I really just want to start my life outside of always being in the hospital, always being in the ER. Anyway, so I get this phone call, and then I follow up on it, and it's like this prompt that's like the person that you're trying to reach is unavailable right now. Call back at a later time. So then I call back, and then the prompt switches up to the point where like you can no longer even reach the person. It says person cannot be reached or something like that. So I start taking the proper measures to like report this person, and obviously like I'm not maybe the 30-year-old me would have done what I did within the past week or 72 hours in an hour. But I'm not that man anymore. I am aging, I'm getting old. And to be honest with you, like someone told me in the past, if the world were to end, we wouldn't know it anyway. So, and I've already gone through experience of nearly losing my life. Not that I want to constantly have that sensation all the time, but I have learned to spiritually trust in my God, the God that I believe in, that everything is taken care of. And obviously, I have to do my part. So, anyways, yesterday I go to an appointment at Baylor. And while I'm there on the fourth floor waiting for some paperwork, I get this phone call from the same number. I say, Mr. Mendez, or hello, I answer. And it's like this audio script that just drags. And I have horrible signal at the hospital. It's worse at Michael DeBakey, but at this hospital, the signal is like in and out, splotchy. And I'm like this, covering one ear, trying to hear whomever that is on the other line. I'm like, hello, hello. And I'm like listening, and I only grab bits and pieces of it, but I hear like this old, I don't know, if I had to like close my eyes and try to describe who it was, maybe like this older MAGA weirdo, cult weirdo type guy. And he was like, Raheem, you need to stop this. And what did he say? He said, grab a pen and paper, and I'm gonna tell you how to KILL yourself. He said the word, but I'm just saying it to be mindful of community guidelines. And I hope that nobody is having those SI or those types of thoughts. If you are, call 988. I'm just trying to explain my experience. And I just heard him say, like, Raheem, go like off yourself, basically. And shortly after, like, a female voice jumps on and says hello, and then the call drops. So, I mean, my life and my day is going on. Like, I'm waiting on paperwork. I have to call my wheelchair transportation. I wouldn't say that I'm multitasking, if not that I'm more involved in my life than whatever just happened. So, like, my mind is like, what do I do with the reality of my life and what I've experienced? It's super depressing and sad. Like, I think that I should really be super depressed if I really allow myself to absorb the reality of my life. And I have made myself more sick by not allowing myself just to feel all of it. And now I know that, and I'm not sulking in it. I know that that may be part of my physical stress, but at the same time, I think I'm emotionally regulated, and I do give myself that space to absorb as I get to learn more and more about what I'm going through in my life, those emotions. And I've learned through, allowing myself to be depressed, even if it was for a short period of time, that I was capable enough to maintain my health, regulate my mental well-being, and have that awareness throughout, which not many people are able to. And I thank God for that. I really do thank God that even if I look back to try to have some pity or self blame, that I really can't, because I see a strong young man that constantly asked for help and just did not give up in asking for help. So I just know what is ethical and what is right, and I'm entitled to, like, not care. Like, the old Evan probably would have picked up the phone and called right away, like, someone's in danger. But I just, like, I have trust in myself and knowing that I am safe. Like, I have to trust that I am safe, and I know in a spiritual way that that's there, and in a worldly way, everyone's dealing with not feeling safe right now, especially with now. Fast forward, after I called 988, I forwarded the text to 77266, or the spam number. So I forwarded the number to 7726, and they gave me this, like, thank you for reporting spam. And so, you know obviously, textbook, the right thing to do is contact the FBI for these threats to life. So I called them, and I get a female operator. Not that it makes a difference, but you know, she, I guess, verifies me through their horrible system that oftentimes doesn't get your name right at all. And it was, it wasn't like, how do I put this? It wasn't odd, but it's odd that she, like, mistakenly had the numbers of the phony number that's been calling me. And I'm like, well, that's weird, because I don't know much, because I've been under a rock for the longest time, about like recent area code numbers, but I do know that, to, like, what are the odds that she gets those three middle numbers right? And I'm like, that's not my number, but that is the number of the number that's been calling me. So she was like, "Oh, just to your number is 346-879," and I was like, "My number is 346-878," and well, I guess I just tossed my number out there. At least I didn't give it all. But anyways, you know, I I thought that that was super odd, and since I've been receiving these phony phone calls, I've reported it to Xfinity. I've reported it to 988 that there was a threat to life towards this guy named Raheem. And, I've been just doing the right thing to make the call stop and report them. So then, the lady, after validating me, she was like, "Sir, you've been told not to call, to stop calling." I mean, I wrote down everything she said. So she was like, "Okay, sir, you've already been advised to stop calling the FBI." And then I put in a female voice. And then I put, she missed verifying my last name. I had to correct that, and I vocalized it. I'm the one who vocalized and made that correction, not her. And then, so the second mistake was the phone number, which I had to, which I corrected, like what we corrected, but she oddly enough had 879, which is that phony spammy number that's been calling me. And so that was kind of a giveaway. Do better. And then, so verified the address. So the second time I called, the operator had enough, I guess, was thorough enough to ask, like, if I lived in an apartment or a home. And then, and that's like super just, see, these types of systems are so wrong and outdated because, like, what do you do if a homeless person calls? Like, it's just weird. Anyways, so then, the average wait time was 15 minutes. And then she was like, "I have a message for you," and prompts me over to this like audio prompt script that says, "You've been something, like you're a repeat tipster." And so then I called again. I'm like, "Hey, I got nothing but all the time in the world. I really do." And I mean, I already lost my life. Like, what do I have to lose? A couple more minutes? Like, you know what I mean? So I called, and then I received a male voice. But to be honest, I'm not going to sit here and say that those voices aren't familiar to me. But I feel like those individuals are systemically part of the problem. Like, there is so much complacency, and I just, I've never ever been told to never call the FBI, ever. And I feel like I actually, like, I did some research, and that's like a lie, like a huge lie. And I think I can, let me see. So 18 USC, this is federal law. It's prohibited for the FBI to actually do that. No one within the FBI has ever informed me to no longer call. This is a direct violation of many federal laws. Obstruction, misdirection, and interference. This exact conduct is prohibited under 18 USC 1505. So, even an operator within any government agency, if you're reporting in good faith wrongdoing and they tell you that you can't, that's actually obstruction of justice. Every concern should be taken seriously. It's not the operator's job to determine whether or not a crime has been committed. It's an operator's job just to simply take the message and peace out. Like, what are you reporting? Take down the report and move along. But that is like true systemic corruption. And I'm not going to sit here and accuse everybody of crimes. No, like, there's a system in place for that. But that's what's wrong with this system, is exactly what I'm explaining to everybody right now. You call them, and like, they just hang up. So it's like, if you don't have the time or energy to answer the call, then don't even answer it at all. But if that's what you're gonna do is not answer people's phone call, then you need to like voluntarily shut down the agency because quite frankly, if that's how you operate, we don't need you anyway. Go ahead and go off on your little teeny bopper dates and do whatever you want to do, but it's just dumb. I feel like yes, I have a valid point in my experience and in sharing it, but also it's like then the FBI needs to tell the general public that they no longer rely or don't rely on them to submit any form of tips. Then just cut off the entire system entirely, cut down the tip line, cut down the phone calls, shut it all down. And the American people are getting very, very fed up with all this interagency corruption and control. And I have like I believe 98% of me has confidence that the American people are so fed up that there are going to be there's going to be a new way of life moving forward. And I don't see any of these government agencies fitting into technologically how advanced a lot of ecosystems are starting to get. And I mean, it's like mass paranoia. Like for just I'm a young man. At what point, like, how weird is that? Like, how threatening can I be? I'm 34 years old. I make YouTube videos. I I mow grass. Like I just touch grass. Like it's just weird, And it's that paranoia and that discrimination in my adversity that I face. It's just unreal. Like, how about you put that effort into protecting people, into taking concerns seriously, into protecting society, and because I know this video's gone far too long, but I feel like if the FBI doesn't have a good grasp of me, myself, my identity, what I've gone through, then that just makes me beyond like someone asked me, I think it was like a VA survey or something. It asked me like, do I trust the VA or government systems to help? And I don't. At this point, I really don't. I think if people knew the truth about me and the actions and the things that I have done as a young adult to get myself help, then like I don't know. I think that I don't need that acceptance, but I think that you know I think it would make some form of a difference. Like I have lived my life so just you know I don't want to say I've been like in fear, but I've just been so like tuned out of everything. I have, and I do it by choice because I see how wrong and how complacent a lot of these. I walked in person to the Houston FBI and I was actually told to at one point to contact San Antonio FBI and Austin FBI so that I could get my case, like my case number. And then I was told that my case was lost. But that is totally separate from this random phone call that I got within the past week. That has absolutely nothing to do with what I'm experiencing this week at all. And the thing about it is like, God forbid something happens in a week, in 2 weeks, or in another month, or God forbid something happens in 6 months, you know? So all I can do is advocate for myself and share my story. And I think that a lot of this is super, super, super dumb. I really, really do. I think it's dumb. I think that, like I walked into the Houston FBI office as a walk in when I was about 30 years old. And I went in person and did my best to tell people what was going on in my life that was wrong. Like I needed help. What was happening to me was super wrong, and what was about to happen was wrong. And it's not about being right or wrong. It was simply me doing everything that I could to get myself help. I could have easily just continued to live my life as I was living it and not cared. But I chose to do what was right, and I regret that almost every day of my life, especially after the interaction I had today with the FBI. Trust and believe, I regret being so just. I regret having morals. I regret having some form of integrity. I regret it. I regret ever doing the right thing all of the time. I feel like I would rather have, if I could go back into time and just tell that Evan just to, you know, I guess just kind of just let every bygones be bygones, let everything be like that, and just let the chips fall where they may. And you know, I guess immerse myself into that corruption that I probably wouldn't have suffered in the way that I did. And so like now I feel like even I even said after all those interactions, and I guess I can go a little bit further, and I'm already almost 20 minutes over. But after I had those interactions, I'm like, get real, like get with the program. If this is how you're treating me, if this is how the FBI operators are treating me in 2020, we're almost in 2027. Like, I walked into the Houston FBI office when I was 30. And so I walked in there like 2022, the beginning of 2023. And we're already in 2027. So like it's not about win or lose. I'm really genuinely being the bigger person 100% even in this moment. It's about like just putting a stop to that complacency. And I have a complacency that people should not have. Like, I have this mental complacency of like, well, what's the point of calling? What's the point of calling the police? Like, what's the point of calling and telling people anything when I'm just constantly disregarded? What's the point of reporting anything when everything's open close? Like, then what is the point? Like, and I wanted to make a LinkedIn post earlier, but I have other things to get to. My main focus today is my birth certificate and kind of chipping away at things that are on my mind. But I was going to make a LinkedIn post and ask everyone, like, how do you feel with a president who is using your hard-earned tax dollars to, this is what he does with your hard-earned money. This is his full potential. He's showing everybody his full potential, what he's capable of. Like, this is him at work with your tax dollars. Like, so everybody's interacting, networking, socializing on LinkedIn, trying to get hired, trying to hire, trying to keep their businesses, their companies afloat and make money. And all that money that's made and spent and taxed on, this is what he does with that money. I was gonna be like, how does that make you feel? Because I feel like if you actually have any form of intellect, you would just comprehend on each level that that is like absolutely wrong. Like, so you work your butt off in a corporate setting, you work your butt off to in whatever bracket you're in, and you pay taxes, and this is how that money's being used. I mean, that's just like a big dump. It's a big waste. And I feel like, you know, for myself, this is my reality. Like, so Lord forbid an Elon fanboy comes and threatens me, and who am I to call? Ghostbusters, like so I'll share the report because I reported the FBI to the FBI. I reported it to them to themselves, and it said submission successful. I did the E report, but the reason I couldn't do the E report on the phone call was because I don't like when you go through, if you know what I'm talking about, and if you've gone through the FBI portal, it asks you, it says like information if it's like a person or a business that committed or violated the crime. So like I don't know who it was. It came from a phone number. So I don't know the name of the person who called me, and I don't know. All I heard was Raheem. So, but this was what I wrote to civilrightsjustice.gov. It says personal description in your own words. Describe what happened. I put on 8/19/2026 at 1:10 p.m. CT. I received a call from 1 plus 1, which is the USA code 346-879-7341. The caller was an irate male making self-harm threats toward a person named Rahim. I have received multiple calls from this number throughout the week. I reported this to 988 and 7726. On 8/20/2026, when I attempted to report this threat to the FBI mainline, 1-800 call FBI, I was on hold for 18 minutes and spoke with four operators. I don't know. I spoke with about three or four. I believe I believe three were male. Three were female. One was male. Not that it matters. So I kind of already told you guys about the first one. The second one sent, "I'll have a message for you." The third one told me, not. Then the fourth guy was like, "Don't call again." I was like, "Hey, I got all freaking day." But then finally, I was like, "I'll call Houston FBI." So I called Houston FBI, and Houston FBI answered. Whoever answered at the desk was nice, chill. They were just like, I told them what happened, and they were like, "Contact HPD and let them know." So I contacted HPD, then HPD sent me to KPD, and so it's just like one of those things. Like it doesn't have to get to that point. It really does not have to get to that point. Like all they had to do was take the report and call it a day. I don't understand why. It's just weird and dumb. So I put when I attempted to call to report this threat to the FBI mainline, 1-800 call FBI. I was on hold for 18 minutes and spoke with four operators. None provided names, operator numbers, or reference numbers, and all four operators failed to take the report. Houston FBI eventually answered and instructed me to report the threat to HPD. I was on hold with HPD for approximately 40 minutes until they transferred me to KDPD due to jurisdiction. A KDPD officer stated that because the incident occurred via phone, there was not much they could do. I explained I was reporting a threat to life. The officer was understanding, and the call ended cordially. I was in. Okay, so I can provide call logs, timestamps, and descriptions of the audio if requested. The FBI's conduct towards me is a direct violation of many federal laws. This describes obstruction, misdirection, and interference. This is the exact conduct prohibited under 18 U.S.C. 1505. No one within the FBI has ever informed me to no longer call. If anything, I've been reached out to in regards to my case. This is discriminatory and needs to stop. Some form of reform in processing calls needs to take place. If the FBI does not want the general public to call and report crimes, they can shut down operations voluntarily. Please address this unethical behavior from this telephone operation. I am entitled to ethically report severe threats to national security or harm. I am a veteran. This is more than an entitlement. It was an oath taken that does not vanish. I kindly ask DOJ look into the FBI's telephone report handling systems. Please and thank you. In fairness, I will continue to ethically report for my own safety and the safety of my family any threat to life or violence. If the FBI does not want anyone to submit these reports to them, they need to inform the general public how they want individuals to report in the future. With much respect and concern, Mr. Mendez Evan. This is why I often fear for safety because of negligent agencies like this and complacency in organizations. I am an American, my family support system, and I all deserve to feel safe and protected. These interactions were awful. My hope is DOJ takes action to cease this form of corruption and violations of safety. So that's what I placed in my report. And honestly, I'm already reaching the 30-minute mark. Like, I feel that the interaction, like, HPD was the female who answered. She was like, "Can you go a little bit deeper into what happened?" And when I gave her where I live, the location, where it happened, which was at the hospital, but she was like, "You fall under this jurisdiction." I don't know. It's just this huge, weird political battle where I stay. And so then The KDPD officer was more like understanding. He was like, "I understand." I was like, "Hey, I'm not trying to come off like I'm reporting a phone number. Like that's not my intent. Like I'm not trying to sit here and report a phone number. Like I want a phone number to stop calling me. That's not where I was coming from. I'm coming from like this number has called me multiple times. So I mean, it was like I could have done this the first time they called me. First they said, their Medicare, which is phony, hooey fooey, whatever, you know, and two, the second one was just, like they were like call drops. So what am I going to report? You know what I mean? But then this last call yesterday, this guy's making threats, to life. So of course, better late than never. I'll report it. But I have learned so much with my circumstances, like what led to me being at this moment in time in my life, that I know that so much is interpreted as like, I don't know, like I could care less how it's interpreted. I feel like the way that I operate and handle my life, it's not really open for interpretation. Like how I live my life is of no concern to anybody else. It is by my choice that I share these experiences. I don't just share them because it makes me feel better getting it off my chest or to have this aha inspirational, you know, influence over people. That's actually what I do not want. I do not strive to be any form of influence, like some hyper positive influence. And I want, if I influence anyone, I want to influence them to understand that they are great. Like you are great. You are a great person, and you too have the same capacity as me, the same rights to, as difficult as it may be, turn all that trauma around into a story that isn't a story that sets you back, but a story that, after so many times of re explaining it, makes you stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. Do you know how many times I've told people I was in a workplace injury denied workers comp? I've lost count how many times I've said that. How many times I've said I was nearly, I'll leave it alone, G rated. I've re explained my trauma so many times. And there was a point in time where I just broke down. Like I just shut down from the constant re explaining of my life and my story. I don't ever remember before my accident in the workplace, I don't ever remember having a story. Like I remember living the greatest life that I lived, that I had, but I don't remember telling any form of story. Like I don't remember having some odyssey story of like, anything. All I remember was learning about cars, and I love cars, and I never had this like, I don't know. I don't think I really had some type of a life where the curiosity struck or arose within anyone in my world to really understand me, who I was, anything about me. I didn't have healthy human interaction at all. And I was in a relationship, like young love, puppy love relationship. And when I got hurt, she left. And later on in life, I finally interacted with somebody that I was just like, I don't know, it was just like a very authentic interaction, like an authentic human interaction. And I know that in that design for that interaction, I know that there were certain formalities, so I could comprehend that and I worked through that. But I think that when I comprehended, like, not that I didn't have that, but that was something that I was used to. But when I comprehended that, I think I comprehended that someone really just saw me for who I was, and I guess saw like the man that I am today then, and the man that I am today is a man that has a story. Like, I I didn't have one back then. I didn't see one back then. Didn't I was not writing my own story. I was not in control of my own story. I was just living life, at the top of the top. I didn't really have, I think when you're going, like they say, when you're going through it, you don't see it. So now I find a lot of strength in my trauma, like in this story that I share. Like, I could have been super petty, and I could have started off this video vlog, and I could have just, bashed the agency to no end, verbally. But, you know, it's not about like retaliation, or which is retaliatory for them to tell me not to call. Like, you know, I think that technology is in a place right now where all of these federal agencies are very, very irritated with it. And even, you got to think about it, like, even these people that are irritated with technology at where it's at, they, in some way, when they begin to comprehend how to use it, they become fascinated with it. It becomes a fascination, and they're just like, oh wow, like, this is what my kids are on all day. And you know it it's like, I don't want to really get into that. That's not the focus of my video. I really just want to shed light to this. What I have experienced with these agencies is complacency. you know I when I don't want I never wanted, I never saw this in my life. Like, I can think, I would rather take a nap, which is what I was doing. I was actually napping. I would rather, like, just take a nap. And, you know, I don't know. I honestly should be doing homework. Like, why do people think I would want to spend over an hour on the phone with the FBI and HPD and KP? Like, why do people, like, you know why? Because people don't need a reason, because they're sick. But what I'm saying in so many words is, like, I could have started off this video super, super petty. And the people that are involved in trying to comprehend my life and understand me and what has happened to in my life to get to this point, and the situations that led to me nearly losing my life, it's not for them. And I get that it's for them to have a job, and it's for them to clock in and clock out and do what they're told. That's for them. It's not for me. You know, what is for me is not for everybody else. And what is for me, I was told a couple days ago, with these allergies that I have, it's for me to understand, and it's for me to take these precautions and do what I have to do. If I have to start buying dust mite pillowcases and dust mite bedding, to protect me, then that's what I have to do. And I have to understand, like, what it is that causes me flares and how to control that. You know, I have this religious spiritual belief that many people, you know, I have found in the churches that I've gone, to, and being a member of the church, that, you know, it's it's kind of like a constant interaction with God. God doesn't just, God will never tell you you can no longer call him anymore. You can no longer call on him anymore. He will never do that to us, you know? And it's kind of like, I think that, like, my spouse grew up in the church, and, you know, she couldn't deal with, like, she wanted her parents to stop, calling. They interfered in our lives in ways they shouldn't have. There was no boundaries there. And those are worldly problems. I think it is good to have boundaries in the world in a worldly way, but also, like, I think that what I'm trying to get at is, like, you know, to conform is not for us. You know, I think that Jesus didn't live a life where he wanted each of his followers to conform to his understanding of God, you know, and I feel like with all this just misinformation in the world that so many people have already broken free from not wanting to conform. And that is okay. That is the answer to all of this corruption. The issues that I see are that the the government and you know tries to really make these mass individuals conform to their way or no way at all. And I don't want to say the government as it is so much this administration. And I served my country in Korea. I saw what Kim Jong Un did to the North Koreans and the South Koreans. I saw that he had them in a way to where they had no form of religious belief. They had no form of believing in anything other than him. And that is not this country. And that is not the man that I aspire to be. I don't aspire to be disrespectful. I'm not disrespectful. And if I'm a repeat, what is it called? A repeat tipster, it's good. I hope that I am a repeat tipster. I hope soon enough they start paying me for solving all these cases because they sure as hell aren't doing nothing. They still haven't even found Nancy Guthrie. So, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I could have started off this video super, super petty and gone straight for. I could have gone headless horseman on this right from the intro, but I didn't. And that shows the world my character, the type of person that I am, who I am, and I'm unashamed to, you know, I think about the lives of these FBI operators, like each person, each voice, even if it's computerized, whatever, but each person on the other side of that phone, they are a human. And that's the sentiment that's not reciprocated. Like, they're answering the phone being jerks entirely. And they're okay with getting paid to be jerks. The thing about it is, like, imagine me if I was working at Tesla and somebody told me, hey, my wheel's about to spin off, and I hung up on them. Like, imagine them telling me, hey, the front of my car just caught fire, and I just hung up on them. Like, that's not okay. I never did that. I will never forget when everybody, as supposedly one of the supervisors, Jason, was this rocket scientist, and I'll never forget. You know, I'm talking about, like, we supposedly there's a rocket scientist or engineer there, and all these smarticle particle people there. And I'll never forget when somebody just pulled off the freeway in Austin into the Tesla service center, just off the freeway in a Tesla. They pull up into the service center in the bay, and everybody was freaking out. They couldn't help the man. and to the point where they went and got Travis, one of the managers in the service bay. While I was standing there, people treated me like shit, and I don't know how the conversation struck up between me and this man, but I think he just kind of like came to me. I don't know if I looked like he could talk to me or whatever, but he was like, I got my card, his key card for his Tesla. He's like, my card went entirely into the dash, and now I can't get my card, and nobody could get it out. Well, I knew, and I still can close my eyes, and I know every single part of that car. And so I peeked around the door. He showed me where it fell, and I put my finger under the dash, like, because I know how to tear the car apart entirely. Like, I can take the car apart by design with my hands and put it back together like nothing. And so I knew where he had dropped that key card. I put my finger in there and open up the compartment, pull it out, place the compartment back, and I gave him his card. And I mean, the resentment that came out from that, like the retaliation just from that, and it was like, to this guy, like, I just saved his life, and to everybody else, like, I was on their poop list because I did something that they could not do. And this guy just like praised me. He said, "Oh man, just thank you, thank you, thank you." And here comes Travis all late, and he's like, "Oh, he got it fixed." He's like, "He got it out for me with everything." You know, it like I feel like, just because I worked on vehicles and because my profession, it was my career, my discipline was different, than I would never want to work for the FBI. I After every interaction that I've had from a young age to now, I would never want to work for them. I would never want to, I have this experience. I can tell you this, that I learned nothing from those interactions. And I, I just, if anything, I have more regret that I did everything to do the right thing. And I think that in comparison, I can really compare the the ecosystem that I lived, that I survived, and I know that I'm just hearing Mr. Earl in the back of my head, like, are you saying thank you, Elon? Like, I see how being in that company has over prepared me for everything that I was about to face and what I faced. And I see that that company was able to achieve something that a majority of the country wish they knew how, and they can't. You know, they can't achieve these things because they don't give men, they don't give women, they don't give humans the opportunity that that company gave me. Just the simple power to understand that I can speak, that I can say something, that I can, you know, bring light to things that are wrong. And I'll never forget. Like, I'll make a whole video, soon, but I will never forget the first day that, I think I was like laying on my back at a park, and it was something that came over me, that I finally felt like this true love for myself and for someone. And I'm like, I love this person so much that I have to do the right thing. Like, and I got in my Mustang. I remember walking back, and I remember randomly there was like an ice pack on the floor, which was strange, and it was super, super hot. And I remember getting into my Mustang and being in this heat. I didn't feel safe anywhere. And I was just thinking to myself, like, Evan, this is it. Like, you have to do whatever it takes to tell people what is happening, what is going on. So I start up the Mustang and I drive the Mustang. I think I like looked up on my phone the Houston FBI office, and I drove. I was losing everything. I didn't have money for anything. My life was just I was losing everything: the apartment, the house, my job, and I used what I had to drive myself to the Houston FBI office. And I remember like pulling in, and I parked like opposite the building, facing the building, and I went through security, and it was two males. I took off my belt. At that time, I could afford to be very well dressed, not like now. Now this is Goodwill. Just so I go through security, and I go up the ramp, and I make a left. I get into the building. I had my Tesla ID badge, and I tell the lady, my name is Evan Mendez, and I'm whistleblowing on the company that I work for. I'm whistleblowing on Tesla Inc. and Elon Musk, and I showed my badge. But let me rewind a little bit, because I remember as I went up that ramp, I stared across, and I felt a little bit discouraged because I saw a white Tesla. I saw a couple Teslas in the FBI parking lot. And I remember, just because of everything that I had gone through, all the crappy interactions I'd gone through in the workplace, I was treated like crap, to say the least, about a lot of things, about the way that I spoke, about who I was, my race, the color of my skin. I was called the N word. Homie, I was just degraded beyond. And I respectfully asked for a linguist, for a translator. And the lady said, okay, like, we will, they would try to get that sorted out for me. I don't think that there were many or even one there. Maybe they just had to get somebody that spoke Spanish. So I did ask, like, I knew at the time that my Tesla ID badge had RFID technology, and I guess maybe I was more technologically inclined than those people there, because I did ask for safety, like, really for technological security, if they needed to take my RFID badge, and they said no. So I was like, oh, at least I asked. Can't say I didn't ask. So then I sat down, like, in the waiting area, and I remember like some female with a backpack walked out. Like, people were maybe leaving for the day, and I remember like the artwork in front of me. It was like maybe power lines. It was like a weird power line design. And there was like red ball. Like, I think it was a power line. And I remember hearing like the shutter speed. So shutter speeds of like maybe cameras or devices, because the place is so old I could hear it. And finally, I was brought into like a room with somebody who I felt like they really did speak Spanish, but there were some things that I was saying that I don't think they really comprehended the full scope of like the calibration of the vehicles. And but I think I did my best, and I was not okay. I was not, like, imagine, I don't know, like, you put yourself in my shoes. You work for Elon Musk, and you just found out things are like bad, like bad things are happening, and you, like, what are the repercussions that come of that? Like, your boss doesn't know, like, you're in the FBI office, like, telling on him, like, come on, like, I was not in an okay place at all. And I was just doing my best through it. I was not okay. I know that I wasn't okay. I'm not saying that mentally I was gone. I think mentally I was all the way there. It was just super hard for me, It'd be hard for anybody to tell on somebody so powerful like that, and what was going on. And I did my best through it. It, I was always taught from the very beginning that it was not for me to investigate. It was just for me to report, and I did my best to report. And I ended up homeless after that, and nearly losing my life again. So the workplace injury wasn't enough. So like, you know, maybe this is the video that's full focused around that day. I don't know. I'm just saying so many words like, if people want to see a petty man, I'll be petty. Whatever it is you want to see, I can be those things. But I'm not going to sit here and make myself to be anything other than genuinely just me. I never have, I never will. You could not pay me enough. You could not tell me, hey Evan, like you have benefits and we'll pay you, you know, we'll pay you any amount under the sun. All you have to do is answer phones, and no, you couldn't pay me enough. I don't even. You just couldn't. And I have these conversations with myself where I'm just like, you know, do I suffer daily because I see so many people that have like jobs, like even my my doctors, nurses, and VA, even the worst patient advocates, like, these people have jobs. And I don't understand, like, why it is that I just can't have that normalcy of, like, a job and have some form of, like, income. Like, I was lucky and blessed yesterday with $20 for a lawnmower, and I know that I didn't get what I should have gotten for the lawnmower, but it was one of those things where, like, you know, I just I took it as the universe came, just and all I can do is really just stand up for myself. And the FBI, they know that they've never told me not to call them, so I'll leave it alone. But you know, I have for a very very long time. I think if it wasn't for genuinely loving in my life, I don't think I ever would have done the right thing and driven myself in person. But I did it because for the first time in my life, I felt like, I just felt so much love. And that man is just gone. He's gone. I know that that man wouldn't call the FBI up, you know. Like, you gotta think about it. Like, let's stick to the facts. If I wanted to call and pester them, I would have done it a long time ago. I went in person, showed face, because that's what a real man does. And that's what I did. If I wanted to pester them, I could have done it a long time ago. I got a lot of this information to help myself. Because the FBI failed me, I don't have a life. They failed me, and then for them to tell me that my case was lost and a whole new case has to be resubmitted, like, come on now. Like, it's just, I mean, think about everything I've done and what I said, and then think about everything that happened after. Like, if the world only knew what I went in and told the Houston FBI office and what came after, it's really, like somebody said the other day, it's really unbelievable. It's one of the, I was watching many versions of Sleepy Hollow, and that's kind of like how they put it. They put, it is just unbelievable, and I just thank God that he took me out of that situation. I mean, I don't know. I just I trust in God to help me navigate forward through this entire process, but I'm not going to trust in these agencies that because they chose not to do anything. It's a lot of complacency that it's just like I told Ryan from OSHA, like you wonder why these things continue to happen is because you guys do nothing about it. These are OSHA department, these are all federal agencies that are there to make sure and take countermeasures so that people feel safe in every way, and they don't do anything. All they do is file paperwork, answer calls, and call it a day, but they don't have any form of enforcement. You should be regulating and enforcing, making sure all workplace standards, and that goes oddly, new shock, that goes for FBI employees because they are federal employees, right? They work for a federal agency. So that means they should be, I could just be here all day. Like, I was thinking the same thing when it came to the passport agency. Like, even truckers have common sense that if they see human trafficking at rest stops, they report it. So if you work at the passport agency and you go through all this documentation and you see something wrong, why don't you say anything? It's a lot of complacency. So I'm just in a place where I trust myself. I'm not going to let these people spin this false narrative about me. If they want to spin a false narrative about me, I hope they're ready to cough up the footage of when 30-year-old Evan walked into the FBI office in person and started talking to them. So I hope they got all that because I'm ready. Tell me not to call. I was about to end the stream, but I hit not yet. I end things when I want to end things on my time. Tell God you want to end anything, He'll tell you something else.